At 50, I found myself entangled in a complex and somewhat troubling scenario involving my son's partner, who had always been rather reserved and aloof with me. My son and his girlfriend, both 25, had been together for some time, but the origins of our friction trace back 3 years, to a period before their relationship was official. Back then, my son was caught up in what he termed a situationship with her. This concept was unfamiliar to me, suggesting a bond deeper than friendship but lacking firm commitment. He showered her with extravagant presents and often welcomed her into our home. Yet when I inquired, he clarified they weren't formally a couple. She was a charming social media personality, exploring her prospects among various admirers. Roughly 7 months into this ambiguous arrangement, I encountered a young woman through my job who seemed genuinely taken with my son. It happened during a busy day at my quaint shop, a space filled with vivid textiles and unique trinkets that mirrored my love for the bold and distinctive. Among my staff was a recently hired young lady whose vibrant spirit and radiant smile could lift even the gloomiest moments. While we organized new inventory one afternoon, she casually expressed her admiration for my son, having noticed his pictures on my desk. She spoke warmly of his accomplishments and interests, which I'd mentioned during our casual coffee chats. With my son in this casual, seemingly non-exclusive setup with the social media star, I saw no harm in connecting him with someone clearly interested. After all, the influencer was still considering multiple suitors, and he'd made it clear their bond wasn't exclusive. So I thought passing along his contact details and encouraging her to reach out was a harmless move. It might be a nice chance for him to connect. When I mentioned this to my son later, his reaction was lukewarm at best. With a vague, "Okay, Mom," and a dismissive shrug, he quickly shifted the topic. It seemed to fade into the background of his thoughts, not pressing enough to act on immediately. His response lacked enthusiasm, and nothing came of it right away. But eventually, he and the influencer solidified their bond. Over the months, their dynamic evolved. Whether my introduction influenced this shift was uncertain, but 3 or 4 months later, they committed to each other formally. They began appearing together more openly, their online profiles brimming with paired snapshots and affectionate notes that publicly declared their status. This move from a casual, undefined tie to a steady, recognized partnership caught me off guard, given the relaxed nature of their earlier days. Recently, hoping to smooth over any missteps, I spoke with her during one of her visits to our home. I offered an apology if my actions had felt meddlesome. Her reply was direct, stating I should have stayed out of my son's personal matters, as the limits of their early relationship, though unclear to me, were defined by them. This idea of flexible boundaries in each situationship was eye-opening and clearly a sore point. My daughter, sensing the strain, half-jokingly suggested I turn to an online forum for advice, a sign of her exasperation. The girlfriend's reaction to our talk wasn't encouraging. She grew even more distant, which concerns me, as my son is deeply committed to their future. The scene unfolded in our family living room, typically a warm and welcoming space with its comfy couches and the steady tick of the old clock in the corner. That day, though, the air felt heavy and charged. It was just us two, as I'd asked her to linger after a family meal, hoping to address our disconnect privately. I chose my words thoughtfully, aiming to express genuine regret if I'd crossed her lines. The fall sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, painting gentle designs on the rug, a sharp contrast to the stiffness of our exchange. As I spoke, her posture stayed stiff, her hands gripped tightly in her lap. Her face, usually lively and warm, was a mask of courteous distance. When she responded, her tone was cool and deliberate, her words carefully selected to keep a polite but detached stance. She pointed out that the nature of her bond with my son, even early on, was theirs to manage, not for others to meddle in. Her words left little space for the connection or empathy I'd hoped to build. It was evident my apology hadn't warmed the chill between us. After a short, somewhat strained talk, she excused herself, citing work demands. Her quick gathering of belongings and avoidance of eye contact as she departed highlighted the frosty mood. Watching her go, I felt a heavy sense of worry. My son is deeply enamored, often sharing their future plans with bright excitement. His dedication to her made her coolness toward me all the more unsettling. It was clear that healing this divide would take more than one chat, and the road ahead felt challenging as I sat alone in the quiet room, considering my next moves. Complicating matters, my interactions with her were few, but one key moment didn't help. When she chose to leave college to focus on her influencer career, I voiced my concerns sharply. She was nearing her degree, and I saw her choice as possibly impulsive. I expressed this more strongly than I should have, especially since I wasn't funding her studies. Reflecting now, I wonder how to repair this strained bond. My efforts so far haven't worked, and with my son's growing devotion, the urgency to resolve this for family peace feels pressing. I'm exploring ways to bridge this divide, aiming to better grasp her viewpoint and convey my intentions without overstepping. It's a tricky balance, one I hope time and care can achieve. Are there ways to mend this connection? She didn't seem to welcome our talk and has grown even more distant. My son, though, is set on marrying her. I hadn't planned to share more just yet, preferring to keep things calm and courteous. But events took a turn, forcing the matter into the open. My daughter, feeling the need to act, confided our family struggles to my husband, perhaps seeking a solution I couldn't find. My husband, a steady figure despite frequent absences for his demanding job, deeply values our family's well-being. His career has given us a comfortable life, but it means he's often away. This time he returned unexpectedly and stepped into the thick of our unresolved issues. Unhappy with what he saw as persistent problems with our son, he made the sudden choice to ask him to leave our home, a move I hadn't expected or prepared for. I wasn't present when he arrived. I returned to find my son had already packed some basics and gone. Seeing his empty space brought a pang, a deep unease that things were slipping beyond my grasp. My son's messages flooded my phone, his words reflecting hurt and shock at being turned out, calling our actions cold. With my husband leaving again the next day, the weight of handling the aftermath and keeping our home steady fell on me. He promised to manage things with our son remotely, a reassurance that left me both eased and anxious. How could we mend such a deep rift from afar? My daughter, siding with her father, showed little compassion for her brother. Her responses were sharp, adding strain to our fragile family ties. Whenever my son tried to come back to talk, their exchanges turned into heated arguments, leaving no space for the calm dialogue we needed. In our home, once filled with warmth and joy, a heavy strain now lingered, thick and stubborn. My daughter stood firmly with her father, echoing his decision with a sternness that felt harsh toward her brother. Her loyalty, while understandable, deepened our family's challenges. Now every attempt to communicate seemed to spark conflict. One day, my son, hoping for peace, tapped gently on the front door, his gaze seeking any hint of acceptance. As I opened it, the hope in his eyes dimmed when he saw his sister behind me, her posture tense, her face unyielding. Before words could be exchanged, the air grew heavy with unspoken blame and defenses. My son, usually quiet, started with a hesitant, "Can we talk?" hoping to close the gap between him and the family. But his sister, seeing his return as defiance, snapped back, "Why are you here? You know Dad's stance." The exchange escalated, voices rising. My daughter, reflecting her father's earlier resolve, accused her brother of being reckless and careless. My son, hurt and frustrated, raised his voice to plead for understanding, not judgment. The words stung, each one missing the core issue, his need for family backing and our need to resolve this together. As their mother, caught in the middle, I felt each barb deeply, watching our family's bonds stretch thin on the verge of breaking. The living room, once a haven of love, became a field of clashing words and wills, offering no space for the calm, healing talk we needed. In those moments, the path to peace felt hidden by hurt and rigid stances. The task was to cool tempers and soften hearts hardened by recent events. I knew rebuilding our bond would take more than time. It would demand a readiness to listen, understand, and forgive. The strife left me feeling our family was fraying at the edges. The core of our unity felt shaken. I'd always treasured our home's harmony, never picturing a day when one of my children would be so distanced. Deep down, I never backed the idea of my son being pushed out. I longed to heal what's broken. For now, I've set aside a small sum for my son, just enough to help him manage until we find a better fix. It's a practical step, but it feels like a patch on a deeper wound. I'm grateful for the kind words many have offered. They've brought comfort in a situation where solutions feel elusive. I know my account may not fully capture our family's complexities or the depth of emotions at play. Still, I cling to hope for a way to reunite us. I'll share an update when there's good news. Until then, thank you for your support and patience. As weeks turned to months, our family's divide began to heal, slowly and with much effort from everyone. My son, undaunted by the home challenges, pressed on with his relationship, his resolve to wed her strengthening despite the family strain. He eventually proposed, and she accepted with a delight clear even in the photos he shared. Seeing them together, truly joyful and planning a future, stirred a shift in my heart and gradually in our family's dynamic. I realized my role as a mother was to back my son's choices and joy, despite past missteps. To start mending, I invited my son and his fiancée to a family meal. It was a cautious first step toward healing. To my relief, my husband, seeing our son's deep commitment, eased his position and greeted them warmly. The house, once too quiet and vast, came alive again as they entered. The meal started stiffly, talks hesitant, but as the night went on, laughter began to ease the strain. My husband and I showed real interest in their goals, which included launching a venture blending her online reach. Their excitement was contagious, and for the first time in ages I sensed a spark of our lost unity. My daughter, though, remained the final skeptic, her feelings torn and doubts clear. Noticing this, the young couple approached her not with bitterness, but with empathy. They shared their hopes for family togetherness and a genuine wish for her to join their lives and future joys. They also made time for her passions, attending her art shows and backing her work. Slowly, my daughter warmed to their efforts. It wasn't instant, but each small gesture, each shared experience, seemed to ease her guard. The turning point came one night at a relaxed backyard cookout, when she and her future sister-in-law paired up for a game of charades. The fun and teamwork of that moment seemed to melt her last doubts. Months later, at the wedding, my daughter stood as the maid of honor, her speech warm and sincere, admitting her early doubts but sharing her delight at her brother's happiness and perfect match. The wedding was a lovely event, held at a charming outdoor spot that echoed the couple's style and our family's healing. As I watched them pledge their vows, surrounded by loved ones who'd seen the struggles and now the joyful outcome, I felt a deep calm. The path hadn't been smooth, but it taught us about love, forgiveness, and the lasting power of family bonds. My son and his new wife's return to our circle wasn't just a reunion, it was a fresh start, full of promise and joy for the future.